first up, I'm going to introduce some people, and then I'm going to get out of their way, if that's okay with you guys. We have Josh Herman. Come on out, Josh.
Bom, agora nessa apresentação, o que a gente vai ter? Vai ter a arte e a tecnologia necessárias para criar os NPCs do game.
Ellie Brown.
O Atomos comentando, cara, superou, essa CitizenCon superou dos anos anteriores. Tu acha, cara? Tu ainda acha essa aqui mais foda que a de 2016? Cara, a apresentação de 2016 foi paulada.
How's everybody doing? Good? All right. My name's Josh Herman. I'm going to talk to you guys about some characters. I'm the character art director here at Cloud Imperium, and we're going to show you guys some pretty sweet stuff. So let's start. Right. So what we're going to talk to you about today is basically the character pipeline from beginning to end. So we're going to start with the project selection.
Eles vão explicar como é que funciona a linha de produção de um personagem, desde o início até a concepção dele, até a produção final.
Getting all of those items into the game and creating things that you, the players, play as. So let's start with the requirements for characters in Star Citizen. One of the biggest things that we really value ourselves on is that we don't have background characters. So yes, in Squadron 42, you will play as a hero, and there will be background characters. But in reality, you're going to be able to get up close to any of those characters just like you would any of our AAA actors. You're going to be able to interface with Mark Hamill very closely. You're going to be able to interface with Gary Oldman, every character there. And very similar in the Persistent universe in Star Citizen, there isn't a background character. You can get up to any of our NPCs. You can get up to any of our mission givers face to face. And we want that, but with that comes a bunch of problems, right? First problem is we scan all of our actors' heads, and we'll talk about this later, but it creates a reason for the fidelity for all of our work to be extremely high. When we start with something that's really good, the performance is really good on our faces,
personagens
our
do Star
animations,
Citizen
our character,
tem alguns requerimentos mínimos.
Everything has to be high, and you're going to see that
Primeiro
later.
que os NPCs não podem ter background, né? Por exemplo, eles não podem ter uma história muito foda, o que sirva como de atenção para os outros jogadores.
So I'll show you a quick little level of some of the characters that we've been working on. This is including, I don't think this has any clones, there might be a couple. Some of our characters wear duplicated costumes or uniforms, which is one of the ways we get around not having to make bespoke assets for every single
Deixa só ele passar ali que aí eu digo para vocês um pouco mais.
So you're going to see some in here, you're going to see in the
Todos esses personagens que a gente está vendo aqui, poucos deles são clones.
Right in the middle.
Massa, né?
And each one of these is going to use stuff that we're talking about today. This is all of our character stuff.
Para criar um personagem, ele não pode nem ser background, não, ele não pode ter um background, porque todas as cabeças do game, elas são escaneadas de atores de verdade.
So, I want to start with this because it basically
Claro, mesmo o Squadron 42 que tem uma história a ser seguida, né?
So, Squadron has over 250 speaking roles, which alone is an insane amount of work. But it also means that again, there's no background characters, but now we need to make assets, we need to make costumes, we need to make hair, we need to make all these things for each individual character. But some characters might wear multiple costumes. Old Man, for example, wears a couple different costumes. He's going to wear a suit, a pilot suit if he's going to be in his Gladius. If he's going to be, walking around the Idris, maybe he's going to be wearing an officer's uniform. And that's going to be multiple different characters throughout this. The PU, however, has different requirements. We want to make sure that the players are
Valeu pelo follow, Evandro.
creating
Seja
their own
bem-vindo,
journey,
cara.
right? It's not about forcing you on a railroaded path or even on a single-player path. It's about a multiplayer experience. And you're going to be able to do different things with that. But let's start with Squadron 42. So the first thing we're going to jump into is the narrative and design. This is where we start everything. So the who, what, where, when, why, basically, is what we start with. Let's say we have any character. Here we're going to use Steve Colton,
Agora estão explicando como é que eles fazem os personagens do Squadron 42. Primeiro eles têm que descobrir quem é a pessoa, o que ela faz, quando que ela faz e por que ela faz.
This is what they look like. Very simple, right? You can see here on the right. So he is male, age 45 to 55. His eyes are hazel. Hair color is steel gray. So you can kind of get a very simple description. And this gives character art and concept art something to start working with. The what. The what is the gameplay component. So what is Old Man going to have to do in the game? Is he going to have to fly a ship? Are you going to have to interact with him ever?
Depois eles precisam saber o que cada NPC vai fazer dentro do game. Se ele vai ser piloto, se ele vai ser NPC mais estático.
This is what locations characters will be in.
Depois eles têm que saber quando é que o NPC ele vai aparecer no game, né? Quais capítulos, em que momento.
You're going to interact with them a lot more. These are all important elements for us to know. And then the why is the brief detailed description. If you played a tabletop RPG, you've probably made pages and pages of backstory.
E depois ele tem que saber o que o NPC vai fazer dentro do game. Quais são as motivações dele, qual é a descrição do que ele tem que fazer.
But one of the lines that's one of my favorites is, Old Man has seen it all. It's his vast sea of experience that makes him an incredible teacher and up-and-coming pilot.
Valeu pelo follow, Viola. Seja bem-vindo, cara.
That alone gives you a little bit of a description of what that character is, right? One thing you'll also notice is we have pictures of the actors. So there's some pictures of Mark Hamill.
Aí depois que eles têm toda a descrição do personagem, eles tiram fotos do personagem e escaneiam ele todo. Escaneiam a cabeça, no caso, porque eles não precisam do corpo.
And so one thing with this as well is, and you're going to see this later as well, is we need to take those scanned actors when they come in, typically as early in the morning, 8 a.m., and they have to go through a whole series of scans and photos and reference and doing that. And sometimes they get a little tired. It's not the most energizing experience sitting there and making faces, you know.
Eles estão comentando que é uma tarefa bem cansativa. E eles têm que começar bem cedo da manhã.
Things like that on the right, which is the pictures of kind of a bar for us to hit of what they should look like. In Star Citizen, it's a little bit different. Stories are created by the characters in Star Citizen. They're created by the players. And also we have a whole different element, which is we're going to be going to different locations, right? We're going to be going to different planets. We're going to have different moods. And so
a criação dos personagens do Star Citizen é um pouco diferente em relação do Squadron 42, porque a história ela é feita pelo próprio jogador. Então, não é preciso ter um nível de detalhes tão aprofundado quanto na campanha. Então, eles precisam ter só uma gama de assets maior para depois ir fazendo a variação desses personagens.
The only real exception for that is something like a mission giver. But even within that, they're going to kind of fit that mold. So like Miles Eckhart wears stuff from Levski. Clovis Darneely wears stuff from Hurston. But even still, they're going to get something that's kind of a little bit custom to them. So after this, we go into the concept stage.
Depois dessa fase de definir o que o personagem ele vai ser, entra na fase de conceito.
Shotgun approach, depending what you want to call it. And this is where we throw out all different kinds of ideas. So these are all
Aí eles desenham todas as ideias diferentes que eles têm para o personagem para depois ir fazer um brainstorm.
It's some sort of a power armor, right? That's what we want our Marines to be like. So we go through all these concepts, we kind of play around with it, we come up with some fun ideas, and maybe we create visuals for those, or maybe we just created a cool visual and we make up ideas for that, like what that could be, made an interesting shape, what could this be? And we just kind of go through those. Once we're done with these, we move on to the selects, or that's what I would call them, where we take our favorite elements of each one.
Depois que eles fazem o brainstorm, qual é o próximo passo? É selecionar as melhores ideias para eles conseguirem combinar elas no objeto final, né, que eles querem, né, pro game.
Front and backs of our medium marine and our heavy marine.
O heavy marine tá
for a little while.
And
in the middle, you also see some feedback. So here you can see it says, you know, maybe that helmet is too bulky. Maybe the legs are too bulky, you know. So on this, we can also start doing feedback as well and doing kind of final iterations to move on before we go to the high poly stage, or also just handing it off to character art. So next is the high poly stage. This is where character art in general typically takes over. And I got a little video
depois eles vão para a fase onde eles fazem
So what you're seeing here is Marvelous Designer.
A criação do personagem.
essentially it's a software for making clothes. And the window you see on the right is actually a pattern. So if you've ever done costumes, this is how we create the patterns for the costumes.
Olha que legal, cara. Eles usam um software para criação de roupas. Onde essa parte da direita aqui, ó, ela é justamente uma ferramenta feita para criar padrões, ó.
But you can see it's a very cool, intuitive software that's gotten very popular, and it also adds a really nice level of realism.
Nossa senhora!
Here he's creating some seam lines, so he's going through and he's going to be able to define where those lines are, and then create the compression inside of that, so that it'll actually start
que legal, cara! Tu pode definir só algumas linhas no tecido e ele renderiza como se tivesse alguma compressão de alguma corda, alguma coisa ali.
Piece of software we use a lot is called ZBrush.
Legal, hein?
ZBrush is a digital sculpting package. Basically what that means is you take blocks of digital clay made up of polygons, and you can sculpt them using intuitive tools that are more like traditional hand sculpting than they are like polygon modeling. So here you see one of our artists.
O ZBrush serve mais para usar para criar polígonos, ó. Onde eles vão criar provavelmente as armaduras, alguma coisa assim.
Using some brushes to move it around.
Nossa, eles fazendo parece tão barbada, né?
So he's masking here, and you're going to see him start moving areas that are not masked to create some extra little details. This is probably character artist's favorite part of the process. It's definitely the most artistic, most
que massa, cara.
Fun part. It's
Eu já mexi já no... Não foi no ZBrush. Mexi acho que no Maya, acho que foi.
We get to make the final high poly render. So this is actually the Odyssey suit that you guys will have access to in 3.3.
Essa roupa aí que a gente tem acesso, a gente vai ter acesso na 3.3, ó.
And we're also creating all the material variants and styles that you guys have already seen.
Só tem 20 cliques por segundo.
After that, we're going to move on to the game mesh. The game mesh or the low poly mesh or whatever. There's a lot of different terms for this. But we basically retopologize, which basically means we draw over the existing high poly with a low poly cage that we're going to apply all the details from the high poly to the low poly via use of textures. So normal maps and different types of diffuse maps, different types of texture
depois eles desenham em cima do processo de high poly para dar os detalhes das roupas.
Low poly
aí é trabalho de textura mesmo, né?
It's what you play with. And it's mostly made for things like memory limits. The higher polygon models can be up to millions and millions of polygons, whereas typically, our characters can be
Opa, Lopes, beleza, cara? Seja bem-vindo. Ainda não, cara. Essa daí, se não me engano, acho que é às 10 horas, se não me engano.
Fortunately, because we're on a high NPC, our budgets are a little bit higher than normal, but we still have to stay within texture memory. So thank you guys very much. This is my part of the talk. I'm going to hand it over to Ali Brown to let you talk about all of our amazing shaders and materials. Thank you.
Massa isso aqui, né? Eu sou muito fissurado em modelagem 3D. Mas tu tem que ter um dom para fazer isso aqui, cara.
I'm responsible for all the graphics programmers across the company. And for this presentation I'm going to talk a bit about all the materials and shaders that go into the characters.
Agora eles vão falar sobre os materiais usados dos personagens.
So, for the first thing I'll talk about is the armor and the clothing. And right from the start, like several years ago, we realized there were some unique challenges on this project. Like Josh alluded to, we have very different needs from Squadron and from Star Citizen, and from this point of view, for the character armor, we have on Squadron quality is everything. We want to get the absolute maximum quality, and when it comes to Star Citizen, normally in an MMO you would take some type of sacrifice on the quality, so you could get the customization and the flexibility to get the scale that you need. But we type of need both of them for both projects. We need absolute quality on both, and we need flexibility on
Olha só que interessante ele falando, uma coisa que eu sempre reclamo nos games que dão muita liberdade. Às vezes, o pessoal sacrifica um pouco a qualidade do projeto para dar modularidade. Então, por exemplo, se para te poder personalizar o teu personagem, às vezes tu sacrifica na qualidade gráfica e ganha, por exemplo, itens para te poder editar, né? Star Citizen tinha o desafio de fazer tanto a qualidade encontro a capacidade de editar ele. E cara, ficou massa, hein?
And it would just you'd mix all the materials on that one texture, but there's a limit to how much quality you can get with that. A texture can realistically only be, say, 4,000 or 8,000 pixels wide. So what we do for all of these layers that we've pulled out individually, all these different materials, we model them individually as high quality layers. So we'll have
Lucas perguntando se a gente vai poder escolher outras raças além do humano. Futuramente sim, Lucas, mas nessa primeira fase do projeto não.
And then these different layers all composited onto this character on top of some unique textures for the character, and then this combining of multiple resolutions is really what gets us the quality. The other benefit of it is it allows us to mix together materials in quite a complicated fashion. So here's some Vandal armor, and you can see that the
armadura Vandal,
in solid chunks is actually got blends between multiple different materials together. This is again just a visualization of where the layers are, and this is the finished product
massa, hein?
once we've got all them layers blended together. So you can see all the subtle variations in the metal, and you can see how detailed all the individual textures are. And this is the 5 layers that go into that particular armor. And you can see individually they look great on their own, but then once they're put together, you really get the top quality. So each of these, oh sorry, one thing I didn't mention on the last slide, another benefit we get of this is the shader was written in such a way that we can have almost an unlimited number of these layers, and they all get combined together when we actually do the rendering. So it helps a lot with the performance, and it gives the flexibility that we need for the MMO, so we can have the customization and swap out armor for a different color, different style, different patterns, without taking any performance hit. Okay, each of these layers as well, we have some, this is quite a recent addition in the last couple of months, but we can now have different lighting models for each one of these layers, which means we can control how the light will scatter and more closely resemble the different
Cara, deve ser muito complexo fazer um game disso aí. Imagina, eles pegam várias camadas diferentes de materiais e renderizam ela em um único objeto.
On top of the material, which you can see on the top side. It's a little bit subtle here, but on the right example, it's quite easy to see. But it gives you like a very tight shine on top of it. And here we've added it to this Vandal armor, and you can type of see like it looks a bit more like car paint. You can type of see a very tight highlight reflection from each of the flat surfaces, as well
as
detalhe,
vai ter desgaste nas armaduras, desgaste no casco das naves.
The next one is a cloth. Again, this is pretty subtle to see on the sphere, but if you look on the edges of it, you get type of on the cloth one, you get like a fuzzy highlight on the edges. On a sphere, it's not a very useful example, but when you see our character,
ai, que a live tá pipocando.
Quite new.
Porta.
Now, but it will be coming in.
Isso é Bishop, eu acho.
3.4. And the last one, which we are only just working on now, is subsurface scattering, which is to emulate more waxy materials like a thick plastic or other things like that.
Agora estão trabalhando no negócio plástico do... olha só como ficou o Bishop, cara. Que diferença daquela época para agora, hein? Caramba, cara, olha o nível de evolução dos caras.
The top model, top image, that's our skin as it appears today, and down below is how it was a couple of years ago.
Ficou muito melhor, cara. Envelheceram mais ainda o Bishop, né?
The first one was just following the literature for art, which just basically means we had to get a lot more rigorous in our art pipeline. We had to really look at the physical values of how reflective real skin is and how reflective different ethnicities would be, and make sure that when we're making our textures, we're really following the precise type of reflectance you'd get on a real character.
Cara, ficou bem menos plástico, né?
And this made a huge difference in standardizing type of how the characters look and stop them.
Sim, é o Gary Oldman.
The next thing was we made some tech changes as well, so the lighting model, which is
o personagem está envelhecendo junto com o desenvolvimento do game. Mais um pouco, acho que a gente não vai ter nem mais o Bishop, já vai ter morrido antes de iniciar o Squadron 42.
And we also added some cavity maps, which is a very detailed texture that shows how light reflects in between or doesn't reflect in between.
Cara, ficou bem menos plástico agora. Tá muito bem
feito. Light reflects off the skin. You can see the shape of the pores, and if you don't have that cavity map, you really don't get the sense of detail. And finally, another interesting thing we have that's different to some other engines and games is our wrinkle blending. So when the character pulls different facial
os caras estão com engines novos para reflexão de luz e combinação de camadas. Aumentou bastante o nível de detalhe. Bom, deu pra ver, acho que ano passado, né, no gameplay do Squadron 42.
Because we want these textures to be as high resolution as possible, we couldn't afford to have them all be like 4,000.
Aí tem gente falando assim, quando Star Citizen sair, ele já vai sair defasado.
So instead we split it out into two different textures. One that handles the micro pore details, the really fine details, and that one stays. On when you pull most facial expressions, they stay mostly the same. So we split them out and keep them at really high resolution, and then the type of the wrinkles, how you move and change your expressions, them textures are slightly low resolution, but allows us to have quite a lot of different wrinkle shapes that we can achieve at the same time. So here's another example of the quality difference, which is quite massive. The top one being the
olha só o nível, cara.
Really quite recent, to be honest, and the difference is pretty massive.
A diferença brutal do um pro outro, né?
It's relatively subtle. In terms of color difference, that it just feels more solid. Just like it's instantly recognizable. Quick video to show it in action.
Olha aí a entrada do Oldman.
Sir.
Who
the hell are you?
Caraca, velho. Não tem comparação, velho.
You want me to learn your name?
Rapaz. Chupa essa manga.
So next up is the,
e aí, EZTV, beleza, cara? Comecei era 2 horas da tarde.
Never the best part of the character. It normally always lets down the characters in games. So the current state of the industry is generally to make what we call hair cards, which is where you make
muito melhor, cara.
Polygon about 2 or 3 centimeters wide, and that
agora alguém fala de uma vez aí que o cara não tá trabalhando, velho. Fala que o game vai. O game vai lançar defasado. O Star Citizen vai lançar. É Duke Nuke.
It's not really how hair is. But it's the industry standard. It's what everyone in the industry generally uses. It's a well.
Cara, eles estão trabalhando em renderização do cabelo. Sabe o que é isso? Ô meu, renderização do cabelo, velho.
It works well, to be honest, in most situations, but the quality's not there, and it's really apparent.
Nunca duvidei. Nunca duvidei.
It's not too expensive. Like, we've learned how to make hair that doesn't cost a fortune. It's not cheap either, but we've got by. So the disadvantages of it, when you get close up, that cost does start to increase. So it's because of the amount of layers of hair we have on top of each other, and each of them is semi-transparent. You end up shading, say, 20 or 30 layers of hair, and when you zoom up and you've got a cinematic, that really
os caras estão falando que uma das maiores fraquezas da indústria hoje em dia, de games, de animações e tudo mais, é justamente o processamento do cabelo pelas placas de vídeo. Porque é bem complicado mesmo.
Here's an example of old Mark Hamill with the old hair.
Olha só que massa, ó. Isso aí é o Mark Hamill com o cabelo antigo. Viu? A luz não refletia direito, o cabelo e tudo mais.
We recently made some improvements to the hair to try and improve some of these problems. So, for example, some of these we'll type of fade out these cards at certain angles to make it hide the fact that these are cards and they're not really individual hairs. We also have some other shader tricks.
Meu Deus, cara, tua fonte tá mega amarela, cara. Quem é tu?
Something called pixel depth offset, which means when you get 2 cards intersecting, rather than them looking like 2 flat
Fala, Davi, beleza, cara?
2 flat polygons.
Cara, tua fonte no chat ele tá um amarelo.
That makes their intersection much more complex and more detailed, and it gives the appearance that they are actually hundreds or thousands of hairs.
Fala, Sidney. E aí, cara, como é que tá? Tô tranquilo?
We also have the maps that help us vary the difference in color between the root and the tip, and also vary each individual hair strand within the card to try and pick them out, and again try and...
Não, sem problemas, agora eu já sei que tu é o Davi. O David, acho que é David, né?
And finally, we've also started to use TSAA, which is the temporal anti-aliasing technique, and that combined with dithering can help reduce the cost and increase the quality of the hair.
ETZ perguntando se a gente tem aí alguma chance de ter ele em game. Fala 3.3? Provavelmente no final do evento sai, hein?
While them new improvements are great, it's not quite enough, and we're hoping to get something better. So we started research a couple of months ago to try and find ways to improve the hair.
Olha, eles estão estudando aí para melhorar ainda mais a animação do cabelo.
Try and model the hairs individually as individual splines and then not turn them into these cards, just keep the original splines.
As vantagens dele vai ser a qualidade incrível.
Shading, all the renderer can actually deal with is polygons, so dynamically every frame you turn the splines into a set of tiny little polygons.
Mas pode estar, provavelmente vai dar problema de performance.
There's a lot of hairs here. Now we can't have the real number of hairs on a human head.
Para eles fazerem funcionar, para não dar muito problema, eles vão ter que usar aquele sistema que, à medida que tu vai se afastando, vai diminuindo a qualidade do cabelo. Só que tem que ser de uma forma muito mais agressiva, porque como tem muito detalhe, eu acho que tu só pode ver o cabelo nos mínimos detalhes, mesmo que estiver bem perto. Então, tu tem que tirar muita qualidade à medida que for se afastando.
I'll show you an example in a second, but it's just night and day. The workflow is also miles better.
Hoje a coisa está produtiva, né?
To figure out how to have flat cards and how to position them. And it's actually the tool I said we use.
Ricardo Hells falando ali, esse negócio do cabelo é muito bacana, mas é que nem a questão do FOIP. É melhor eles fazerem isso mais pra frente. É que, cara, isso aí é uma coisa que o pessoal vem discutindo há bastante tempo. É que as equipes que trabalham no game têm diferentes qualificações. Então o pessoal que trabalha nessa parte de cabelo, de coisa, é bem diferente das outras que fazem naves e o core do game. Olha só como tá agora o negócio do cabelo. Que qualidade, né? Mas que nem eu tava falando, cara, esse tipo de coisa não influencia diretamente no tempo de desenvolvimento, entendeu? Tipo, eles estão trabalhando lá separado, lá, beleza, vamos estudar tecnologia de cabelo. Aí eles pegam um ou dois caras e botam pra estudar isso aí. Enquanto isso, a outra equipe tá lá desenvolvendo o core do game, desenvolvendo a economia, não sei o que. Aí, mais adiante lá, eles resolveram que o cabelo ficou legal. Beleza. Agora eles implementam no game, entendeu? Não é uma coisa que fica segurando o desenvolvimento. FOIP é a mesma coisa. Mas olha, cara, quero muito ver o Squadron 42 agora no finalzinho do ano.
And the final downside is we have to rely on this temporal anti-aliasing we have, TSAA.
Viola perguntando se essas implementações foram pedidas pela comunidade. Duvido muito, cara. O Chris Roberts, ele é muito perfeccionista. Pode ter certeza disso. Pensa bem, ó, deve ter quase 500 profissionais trabalhando no jogo, tá? Que ele pegue 300 caras só pra fazer o game. Agora imagina, tem 300 caras trabalhando só pra fazer o game mesmo. Imagina tu tem uns 200, até mesmo tem 100 pessoas só estudando como melhorar o game. Essa que é a moral, entendeu?
Who the hell are you?
Olha só, cara.
Stay frosty. I'm your new wingman, sir. The name's...
Ease up. You want me to learn your name? Do what I say and live long enough for me to care.
Quantos meses dura esse ciclo? Eu não sei, cara. Espero não ter uma embolia pulmonar aqui sentado nessa cadeira.
I'll hand you over to the amazing Sean.
Curti, cara. Curti bastante esse evento.
Hey, everyone. For those that don't know me, not yet.
Rugby, eu ia derreter meu Squadron 42, mas vendo isso eu mudei de ideia.
Nice of them, right? Anyways, for those that don't know me, my name's Sean Tracy. I'm the technical director of content here at Cloud Imperium Games. It's basically like a tech art, tech animation, and tools director. Generally on the tech art side, I just want to explain a little bit what a tech artist is. There's a lot of different flavors of tech art, but generally we exist somewhere between Josh and Ali. So Ali is an engineer, Josh is an artist. So technically, we aren't artists, tech artists. It's perfect, right? So basically, we exist in the spot that goes between the two of them. So generally, we're developing tools and we're developing pipelines so that the artists can get all these kind of things in. We try to set those 50 to whatever budgets for the art team, right? Cool.
O diretor técnico, ele fica mais ou menos entre o cara que faz a arte e o cara que é o técnico mesmo.
As I mentioned, tech art rings, skins, and simulates basically a delivered asset.
Acho que ele faz meio que tipo um intercâmbio entre eles.
Generally, what we have to do is bring these characters to life. We need to move them around. We need to skin them up to rigs, we need to put simulation on them, and generally we need to get them in the game in front of you guys so you can experience all of the cool things that you are seeing up there. So the first thing to kind of talk about in terms of our pipeline is we got to talk about skeletons. Now, what's a skeleton? Now, it's actually just a set
não
of
adianta,
joints,
Ricardo, tu botar, por exemplo, 1000 pessoas trabalhando no mesmo lugar. Não, às vezes, o problema técnico que eles vão ter vai ser tão grande que não vai avançar. Mas eu concordo contigo. De repente é muita gente para fazer isso. Mas eu ainda prefiro que tenha gente trabalhando em paralelo, que daí, enquanto o game não sai, outras pessoas estão estudando melhorias já, entendeu? Então, justamente para não deixar o game defasado. De repente, é por causa disso que o game não defasa. E tem uma equipe que está sempre trabalhando para melhorar a tecnologia, entendeu? Imagina se eles tivessem desenvolvido o cabelo e tivessem deixado, beleza, não vamos mais fazer isso.
You'd have to batch process that entire 60,000 kind of animations. So we work on some nice update pipelines that make that not having to be the case. Now, after that, we get to skinning. So what is skinning? A lot of people, when they hear skinning, they're like, oh, that's the texture. That's the material. To us, that's not at all the case. Skinning is actually weighting certain vertices of the characters to the bones so that they move at a certain rate. So when I move my arm, we've got this vert skinned into my upper arm, so as that moves the vertice. So it sounds like a pretty easy process, but actually when you get some really complex pieces of armor, some really complex characters, this is actually pretty tricky to do and pretty tricky to make look real. So this is a big part of a tech artist's job. So then once the skinning and rigging is done, we'd move on to simulation. But first, I want to show you a little bit of the actual process that we go through for skinning.
Olha só, eles trabalhando
so here we've got a piece of armor. This is actually one that I showed in a cloth talk a little bit earlier. It's one of the Hurston security with some brand new cloth text that we're using. And you can see that the poly counts are whatever, right? So they're pretty high, and it means we have to deal with every single one of these vertices. This is why a tech artist actually really cares about that budget, because every single vert they add is a vert that we have to skin, right? And you can see that it gets pretty damn granular. Now, we can start off pretty basically where we actually project from our naked male, from our base male, onto the armor, but then it's going to just look like a wetsuit or something that's literally attached to the skin. And this is where the trickery comes in. We've got to blend weights. All the different colors are basically different weights, different bones that are on that particular one, how many weights there are on it, which bone it's attached to. And then we can have really hard things that are like along the spine. If we're moving our shoulders back or we're moving our arms up, that's just another level of complexity that we have to deal with. So what they do is they touch up the skin from the projection, and then we have to run a ROM on it. What's a ROM? It's a range of motion.
Cara,
so we have an animation that we can just load up really quickly,
de animação.
And we can run them through all their paces. You know, literally running pace.
Não sei se alguém já trabalhou com 3D aqui.
We even have one that actually goes through a huge range of motion. Basically everything that a game character could do, and we even go a little bit further with some of this stuff because of course we have.
Vocês estão ligados, né? O que é isso aqui, né? Isso aqui tem a ver com a questão de.
So they polish those up. We do the ROM, and then we move on to simulation.
Pá, cara, isso aqui tem um nome muito interessante, que é justamente, por exemplo, assim, tem coisas que são influenciadas, essa que é a palavra. Tem certos pontos da armadura que são muito mais influenciados pelo movimento que outros. Então, tu imagina o seguinte, se você tem um item fixo, que ele é fixo, ele é sólido, se tu mexe um braço, ele não pode sofrer uma influência muito grande desse movimento, porque ele é sólido, sabe? Mas um tecido, ele tem que sofrer muito mais influência do movimento, porque ele tem que acompanhar a pele, entendeu? E é isso que ele está falando. Tem certas coisas, por exemplo, se você trabalha camadas sobre camadas de textura, esse que vem o grande problema de fazer o skinning. Então, por exemplo, aqui assim, aqui onde está o meu braço aqui. Quando mexe aqui, ó, isso aqui, ele influencia essa parte aqui do corpo, porque ele tem que seguir, né, o movimento do braço. Mas, tipo, aqui ele tá sólido, sabe? Ele não vai ter muita movimentação. Agora, o tecido, ele é altamente influenciado por isso aqui, ó. Então ele tem que se comportar muito junto com o braço em relação, por exemplo, se eu mexesse, se isso aqui fosse plástico, aí ele não teria que se mexer tanto, ó. Eu só teria que acompanhar, entendeu? Esse que é o esquema que ele fala sobre trabalhar com camadas, sobre camadas de layers. Isso aqui é bem complicado, cara. Eu já fiz 3D e vou dizer pra vocês que
the trench coat has a whole bunch of joints, and I think it's another 100 or so joints just to do the sort of cloth simulation to it. Again, we can't carry that on a base skeleton, but with skill extensions, we attach it, and then we extend the skeleton at runtime, and then when you remove it, we clean those joints right back up. Now, provided they're all physically simulated, this is actually pretty straightforward to do. I say that as being not the programmer that wrote it, so.
Se eu já achava o sistema de esqueleto já difícil, imagina o sistema de pele.
Basically, nobody has to go in and animate this thing. That just works. The animator might have done this run cycle 2 years ago. That's fine. If I put the cool jacket on him, it's going to move exactly like you expect, no animator input whatsoever. So I refer to this a lot of times as runtime rigging. So let's take a quick look at that. I might have to loop this video once or twice.
Ah, que legal,
so this was actually Silas's outfit in one of our commercials before. And actually, not to get you to look, you know, but at the bottom of the
jacket, as mãozinhas estão inchadas, né? O cara tá com pressão lá, tipo, 20 por 30.
You can see that actually it simulates quite more realistically on the right-hand side. Now, I'll loop that video back again just so you guys can see that a little bit more. So again, if we had to simulate, if we had to animate this specifically, that would be a bit of a problem. But and it's subtle stuff, I realize, but that matters to us, and it absolutely matters to Chris. So you can see the jacket on the left is almost attached to him, right? This is like a wetsuit. This is full skinning, no simulation joints, and then the one on the right has some nice, just some simple bone chains, nothing too crazy, just to give it that flow that you would expect out of clothing. So we'll be taking this to the next level, and if you saw the cloth talk a little bit earlier, you'll see kind of where we're taking this kind of stuff.
Tá ligado, né? Que ele não precisa... Tá ligado que ele não precisa, por exemplo, animar cada roupa que é feita, sabe? Na verdade, não era bem essa expressão que eu queria falar, mas, por exemplo, quando o cara ele vai fazer o personagem, por exemplo, assim, entrou um personagem novo, tá, que eles têm que modelar. Eles não precisam modelar a roupa a mesma roupa para cada personagem novo, porque a roupa ela já tem suas animações prontas, entendeu? Cara, esse vídeo aqui é incrível. Olha só. A prótese que eles mostraram numa TV passada.
You can imagine that we wouldn't want to rebuild a whole skeleton just for this.
Se você sabe o que isso daqui, isso aqui tem a ver com a morte permanente futuramente, cara. Porque o cara vai poder usar próteses mais pra frente. Quando, por exemplo, tu perdeu um braço ou uma perna em combate.
There's a big piston that twists. So that actually needs an aim constraint as well as a twist constraint.
Ó, era justamente o que eu tava falando, ó. Tu não precisa modelar cada uma dessas roupas pra cada personagem novo que tu desenvolver. Porque as roupas já têm suas próprias animações. Tu só vai ter que encaixar em cima do personagem, entendeu? Então eles fazem esse trabalho uma única vez e depois já...
And again, that gives that secondary motion. We can't go back to an animator and say, we made a tie. You have to do 60,000 animations again. Steve Bender not be pleased at all. So here we kind of hidden this asset a tiny bit just because it's a bit of a squadron asset. We don't want to give too much away. But we have to do the ponytails. Same sort of idea. It's a pendulum simulation. And here they're inside of Character Tool, just actually turning them on and turning some of the debugs on with them. And usually when we set up these pendulum simulations, what we deal with is weight, range of motion, so how much on a pendulum this can actually move. If we do it on a weapon, we use a half cone kind of technique, so it can be flat against the back. But you can see, even for stuff as subtle as a ponytail, this can get pretty busy.
Nossa senhora.
So this is a bit of a grayscale. Again, we just don't want to give anything away here. And again, this is in slow motion, so keep in mind.
Ainda tem que melhorar um pouco aí esse sistema de cabelo, né? Valeu pelo follow, Tricky. Seja bem-vindo, cara.
I believe this is the heavy slaver as well. And this we kind of have, I got no better word for it, kind of a skirt, sort of loincloth kind of thing. It's really, it's heavy, but you see there's a lot of simulation joints to pull this one off. We're going to turn on the debugs to all of them, and you'll get kind of an idea that even something as subtle as that, back and front,
Meu Deus, olha essa ferramenta de debug.
To get this polished and working quite right. So huge amount of respect for our tech artists there. Now I realize this is a bit weird, just the legs walking around, but again, you see the simulation working quite nicely. Cool, I think that one kind of does it there. Cool.
Que animal, hein?
Okay, so now that we've done the skinning, we've got the skeleton, we've skinned it, we've simulated it, we have to get it into game, do something with it. Now, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but our characters are made of items just the exact same way that the ships are. So we actually use the exact same system of item ports. So characters are just a set of items. The body is an item, a shirt is an item, the head is an item, even the eyes and the teeth are items. All these items have unique components on them, and this is kind of the whole reason for this is that we need things like additive components, and these are gameplay components. These are sets of code that aren't just restricted to a character entity.
Os personagens são muito complexos, cara. São divididos em muitas partes. Cabeça, braço, olho, boca. Tudo isso para eles poderem ter controle sobre ele.
When I put the legs on, I have 2. Once I put the torso on, I have 7. So those add up kind of together, and there's a lot of different components on it. We also carry some sort of hiding and showing logic, which I'll talk about a little later. We call it zone culling. Now these are all attached within a certain hierarchy on item ports, and I'll talk about that in a second.
Que é as roupas de
one of the things that happened was, as Star Citizen was starting, we had a lot of assets, and generally if you're going to make a modular character system where people are going to wear multiple layers of clothing and interchange them between each other, there's a really important thing that you need to do, and that's to follow the exact same topology from your body all the way up, and that means literally the same polygons all the way across, regardless of what kind of outfit it is. This wasn't the case. When most of us came on, we had a lot of assets already, so basically that decision was already made. The reason this is a problem is during deformation. So if you can imagine I have a long jacket on, and I bend my arm rather. If the body topology, so the actual polygons of it, is different than my jacket topology, I'm going to get clipping every time. I'm going to have the elbow come through, and there's no amount of skinning that you can do to fix that because they're just literally too different. So I might have 2 edges here to deal with, and then 3 edges on the elbow. So that 3rd edge is always going to go through because I have no other control. So how we solved that was by just not having the problem. We said, let's just call that stuff out. So we call out the polygons on lower layers. But now we have the problem of layering. So as we go up, we have 3 to 4 different layers that can be on top. Sometimes you want to show a shirt. Sometimes you want to show a jacket that still shows the naked body. Sometimes there's a lot of built-in logic to this, and that's actually housed on the components. So I want to kind of show you how this kind of works. So here we have a very fit male. And as the shirt's attached, basically we just chop the asset in half just to show you what's happening below. We actually call out the entire chest, and then we call out the upper arm. And you saw on the previous slide, we have, I think it's 32 zones. I might get that wrong. But it's between 30 and 40 zones right now that we can call out, and that's all marked up within it. So again, the upper arm is gone, the lower, the bicep sort of area, and the entire torso.
Ah, é assim que eles resolveram então o problema do
long sleeves. So on a long sleeve, all of a sudden we hide a couple more zones. And again, we just don't deal with this similar topology problem. Also, we get a little bit of performance back too, which is good.
Eles tinham um problema de clipping gigantesco, que era a pele sai para fora da roupa. Porque o que acontecia? Tu botava uma camiseta em cima da pele.
And now a jacket layer, which makes this a little more complicated. So now that we've got the jacket on top of a t-shirt, we actually have to add those layers and that logic together. So the t-shirt is hiding all the chest and upper arm, but it would have left the lower arm. Now that we have a jacket on the higher layer, then we continue to hide the lower arms. And I realize it sounds subtle, but there's a lot of internal logic that actually has to happen within there. Just, again,
antigamente o Star Citizen tinha um problema de clipping muito grande, que era, por exemplo, tu botava uma camiseta e às vezes a pele ficava por fora da camiseta. Aí o que eles resolveram fazer? Vamos eliminar então o problema, né? Então quando tu põe uma camiseta, alguma roupa por cima da pele, Ao invés de tu ter que calcular toda a topografia do corpo, eles simplesmente esconderam o corpo. Oh, simples solução.
Then he's right back to it. So that gives you an idea of what we're doing with zone culling anyways. So I talked about the items. Ultimately, all of these items come together in a file we call the loadout. So this is a loadout is literally just a snapshot of a hierarchy of items, and they all depend on each other. So you can't attach a head without a body. You can't attach eyes without a head. You can't attach glasses without eyes. You can't attach hair without a head, without a body. You can't put an undersuit on without some clothing on the body. Like, it's all hierarchical in that sense. And the loadout literally is just a snapshot of that. You players, when you're playing and you're working with your mobi-glass, setting your loadout, you don't really see the hierarchy, but you are actually just adjusting your own hierarchy of a character. Now, we have to set up hierarchies for NPC characters, so we have a little tool. It's a little less flashy than a mobi-glass, but we have our own internal development tool called the loadout editor.
Por exemplo, se tu não consiga colocar uma armadura se tu não tiver um traje espacial por baixo e assim por diante.
So I'll kind of go a little slow on this one. We've got, first, he's actually added the body item on. And I realize the UI is dark. He likes the dark UI. Power to him. Thanks a lot, Brett, for making the video.
Meu Deus.
Now, he's attached the body. And on the body, we have a whole bunch of ports. We've got the armor undersuit port. We've got clothing feet, clothing hands, clothing legs, torso 1, torso 2, and the head. So next step, we're going to add the head. So great. But the head has no eyes. So maybe we've got to add some eyes. Then we add some teeth. Then we add some hair. Then we go to clothing torso layer 0, and we add sort of
essa é a hierarquia do sistema de roupas dentro do personagem.
And then torso 1 is above it. So we put some shoes on. Now, we talked about the zone culling system, and what's kind of interesting is that we call the body as we attach clothing, but we kind of have the exact same relationship when it comes to armor and undersuit. So if you can consider that a naked body is to clothing the same way an undersuit is to armor. So that's the exact same sort of structure. It's just all additive to the other hierarchy. So you'll see that as soon as we attach the undersuit, oh, that already happened anyway. As soon as we attach the undersuit, we have to hide all that clothing. So that's all already called out, and that's on the highest layer. But now we have to attach some torso items, attach a helmet, and we're still doing that same kind of culling all the way down onto the
sistema de hierarquia é o que garante que, por exemplo, tu não saia com uma armadura e pelado por baixo. Só consegue ir adicionando os itens à medida que tu vai colocando os itens mais baixos, mais básicos primeiro. E aí depois tudo funciona lindamente quando o personagem vai ser animado.
For the developers anyways, we load the loadouts pretty directly on the players if we have to and these kind of things. So it's quite nice.
Caramba, velho, que trabalhão.
Cool. So that kind of gave you a really good idea of like literally start to finish. We go from concept all the way down to loadout implementation. And as you can see, there's a lot that goes into this, and especially the stuff that Ali was talking about. There's so much subtlety in a lot of things that we're doing. Like, we were really happy with those faces. Maybe, you know, again, I was actually really happy with the Gary Oldman stuff 4 years ago. But as time has progressed, as new things have come online, we can push it further and further and further. And again, there's a lot of subtleties. Now I want to talk about some future things that we're going to start looking into, which is pretty exciting. So creatures, that's a big one. You know, we kind of played around with the sandworm.
Fazer criaturas
played around with the Zyphopod. Cool. But now we have Hurston. We have savanna biomes. We need to get some life into them. So that'll be a really fun thing to work on.
Vai ter fauna em Hurston.
Really stick around for the next talk because there'll be a little bit on this in there, some body variations. So that'll be interesting.
Vai ter variações de corpo também.
Buff and perfect like that guy.
Essas são coisas pro futuro, né?
So we've also got more aliens to deal with, and by aliens I mean whole alien races. So we have the Banu and the Jian. That's going to be super interesting.
Eles vão fazer mais raças alienígenas também.
So I talked a little bit about these loadout
personagens criados de forma
really
procedural.
Nice to work in those kind of hierarchies is you can make that procedural. I don't want to say easy. I keep saying easy. You can do it in kind of a straightforward manner because it's a whole set of rules already that's built into the system. You just ask it to do certain things. Then again, stick around for the next talk, as gene splicing will be a thing very, very soon here. And then finally, as you've started to see, that we've started to implement these cybernetic limbs. So it's only a matter of time.
E por fim eles querem estudar implantes cibernéticos, que é justamente aquele item que entra no negócio da morte permanente.
So hopefully you guys found this talk pretty interesting. We want to have some big special thanks. We had a lot of help making this talk, and we get a lot of help
do cara caminhando com a perna com a prótese numa perna. Cara, aquilo dali é muito morte permanente.
So huge special thanks to Andrew Hernando, Brett Morris, Shane Hessler, Chris Von Camperno, Corey Johnson, Erica, I don't want to mess it up, Erica, thank you, Forrest Steffen, Gage Hallman, Gun Park, Jeremiah Lee, Marcy Lee, Milan Paycheck, Tyler Young, and of course,
achei massa essa apresentação, hein?
And mostly you guys.
É muito complexa a criação do personagem.
People come up and say thank you to me, and it's us that should be thanking you, because you guys are letting us do this work. This is our passions. I could be doing other jobs. I could be working on Barbie's Funhouse Adventure or something. But you guys let me work on this stuff. So thank you, guys. Thank you.
Muito bom. Curti.
Cool.